You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I've been talking a lot of hockey recently, and I'm still going to talk hockey. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs, best playoffs in sports. I'm not going to talk about hockey, but I am going to start with college football, because that's on a lot of people's minds. And I've talked about it before. I really don't like repeating stories unless I have to. You know, if there are important updates that come out, of course I'll rehash a story, but I made a promise to you that I wasn't gonna beat a dead horse. But this is on a lot of people's minds. Nothing's official yet with the Power 5 conferences. They're still talking. They're still trying to figure out a way to do it. I mean, depending on who you believe, we're either going to get no college football, spring college football, conference-only college football, a full season. There are a million different things that are being thrown out. And what's interesting to note is that a lot of the people in college football, guys like Jim Harbaugh and Trevor Lawrence, want to play. They want to be out there on Saturdays plying their trade. It's honorable. I mean, there were people in March and April that wanted to go into work. Especially the unemployed people. But I just don't see how we can get college football off the ground this year. I don't think conference only works. I don't even think bubbles can work. It can't be done. The only conferences that could do it would be the Power 5 conferences. And that would be so unfair to the smaller conferences and the players at those schools. It can't be done. And even if they crisscross the country like Major League Baseball is doing, you're taking a big risk. Look at all the headaches Major League Baseball is having right now. They had the thing with the Marlins earlier, and now there's something with the Cardinals. Crisscrossing the country doesn't work. I mean, the one thing I'll say is it's easier for football because realistically, if you're playing on Saturday, you just need to get there on Friday, and if you have a safe space, it can work. If you have a safe means of transportation, like a bus or a private jet, you could do it. But it's, again, how many schools can do that? There are a lot of schools that are going to lose a lot of money this year. I'm not talking about the schools like Clemson or Alabama or LSU, you know, the big schools. Everyone is focusing on the Power 5 conferences. There are a bunch of other conferences that need to be considered. You can't just single out the Power 5 conferences. That doesn't work. I mean, one thing that we're learning from Major League Baseball, the NHL, and the NBA is that the only way to safely do this without any headaches is with a bubble. Or two, in the case of the NHL. College football doesn't have that luxury. There are just too many schools. You want to tell me that these people want to apply their trade so much that they'll take the risk of crisscrossing the country? Okay, but you've got to sign one hell of a waiver. If I was the NCAA, that's what I would push for. And even then, you have Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, saying that it's up to the schools. Where's the leadership? You can't leave this up to the schools. Realize, the schools really don't care about these guys. They care about the coaches. They don't care about the players. The players are going to be out in 3 years. The players are there to make the schools money, and then that's it. That's how the schools look at it. If it was up to them, they'd throw caution to the wind and say, yeah, okay, we'll play. Good luck. We'll pray for you. That doesn't work. That's a bunch of nonsense. There's no leadership. You want to tell me that the players want to play? Look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is slated to be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. He doesn't speak for everyone. How much money does Trevor Lawrence stand to lose if there's no season? I mean, if there's no season, how can you have a draft? If I was the NFL and there was no college football season, no draft. You can't do it. How can you properly evaluate these guys? A guy like Joe Burrow was a no-name 12 months ago. Without the benefit of his last college football season, he's an undrafted free agent. If you're not going to have college football, you can't have a draft. Okay, Jacob, what do you do for the bad NFL teams? The only thing I can think of is extra salary cap space. Not this coming season, but the season after. You come up with some kind of a scale where the bad teams get extra salary cap space just for that year. Maybe you give them extra picks down the line. I don't know, but you can't have no college football and still have a draft. I mean, I've said this before, but this is the only way that we can have college football. There is something called the NFL Draft Advisory Board. They advise college football players on where they're most likely to go in the NFL draft. What I would do if I was Mark Emmert is I would have that board make me a list of all the players that they think can be drafted. Doesn't matter where. First round, 7th round, it doesn't matter. If they have the potential to be drafted, put them on a list for me. Then what I would do is I'd put all those players in a bubble. In essence, what you'd create is college football all-star teams. And those teams would play each other. I don't know how many teams there would be. Maybe 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever. Yeah, they play each other a lot. Even if it's just a shortened season, like 8 or 10 weeks. That's the only way to do it. We can't ask these guys to crisscross the country. It just doesn't work. You want to tell me that conference only negates that risk? That's a bunch of nonsense. Look at Major League Baseball. Those guys are traveling geographically. There are still a bunch of issues. Any travel now is extremely risky. I mean, if you're going, from one town on Long Island to another, okay, you can live with that. But New York to Pennsylvania, New York to Massachusetts, New York to Florida, that's risky. We can't do it. It just doesn't work. The only way to have sports right now is in a bubble. If you want this done safely, if you want this done without any headaches, bubble or bust. I don't know where that bubble would be, but you do have some time to figure it out. I mean, the NFL is going to have a huge issue soon. They're not doing a bubble. They're going to have so many players get the coronavirus, it's not even funny. Oh my God. I mean, you can't control what these guys do when they're at home. If they're in a league-sanctioned hotel that's cordoned off and you control who comes in and who goes out, you can control that. But if someone's home, they can go out. I mean, all it takes is one person doing something stupid, bringing in the coronavirus, and you've got a huge issue on your hands. And the NFL really can't make up those games. Unless they have a common bye week, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do? Go by win percentage? I don't like that in the NFL. That doesn't work for me. The NFL had a chance to do a bubble. They failed. I mean, realistically, this is the only way that you could allow players to go home if you don't want to have a bubble. Because that's the big issue. You can make the stadiums safe with no fans. You can make the practice facilities safe. It's going home that you can't control. This is the only way that you could control it. And I don't like this. But I was thinking about it. This is the only way to do it. And the NBA did something sort of kind of like this, but they made it optional. They had that luxury. The NFL doesn't. Have everyone wear some kind of a monitor. Like they were on house arrest. Whether it's an ankle monitor, a wrist monitor. So that way, everyone knows if you're going out or not. You want to tell me, Jacob, that can't be done? These guys need to be allowed to go grocery shopping or pick up dinner? Hey, I'm with you. It's not a good idea. But it's the only way that we can safely control it. That's the thing. People are putting personal liberty over public health right now. And that is just so incredibly wrong. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Think about it this way. When people drive drunk and get into an accident that kills some innocent driver, do we say, you know what, that person had the right to drive drunk? Or do we say that person was an idiot for driving drunk? It's the same thing. If you want to get the coronavirus, if you want to, forego that risk for yourself, okay, fine. I can't stop people from being stupid. But then you're bringing it in to everyone else. If player A chooses to go out late at night and not wear a mask and not social distance, and he makes that conscious decision, that's all well and good until that person gives players B, C, D, and E the coronavirus. And those are 4 innocent people that chose not to go out, that did the right thing, but they still got the coronavirus because one of their teammates acted like an idiot. You want to tell me it's not a guarantee that person A is going to get the coronavirus? You're right. But there's a much, much, much higher likelihood of them getting the coronavirus. Why wouldn't you negate the risk as much as you can? There are some people who are going to throw caution to the wind. And again, you can't stop stupidity. Let that person go out. But then, that morning, as they're preparing to drive to the practice facility, stop him dead in his tracks before he even gets in his car and say to him, we know you went out. This is what you need to do now. You're not going to practice. There's no way during this that we can have all the liberties that we held so near and dear. I understand it's a slippery slope. I get the argument. I promise I do. But this is the most serious pandemic we've had in 100 years. We've never dealt with anything like this before. The only way to deal with it is through drastic measures. All in all, the only way to do sports safely is through a bubble. I mean, Major League Baseball knows that. There was a report that came out that said that they want to have the postseason in a bubble. They know that what they've done hasn't worked. They just can't change it now, but they can change it for the postseason. And if you don't want to have a bubble, you're dancing with the devil, and you have to have these guys wear some kind of ankle monitor, or wrist monitor, or something. I understand the optics. I get it. But we can't worry about that right now. If we want to have sports, if we want to have football, these are the sacrifices that need to be made. If guys like Trevor Lawrence and Jim Harbaugh really want to ply their trade, or, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, I think the only way to do it is with an ankle monitor. And even then, that's not a perfect solution. Because the person that they're inviting home, whether it's a family member or not, no judgment, could have the coronavirus. It's really not a perfect system, but it's the best system we have. Moving on now to hockey, and before I preview the 4 games today, I have to talk about the NHL Draft Lottery. And I didn't talk about it yesterday because where was the story? We all knew who the 8 teams were, and we all knew the stakes. 12.5% chance of getting Alexis Lafreniere. a guy who is universally regarded as the best prospect in this draft. I've never seen the kid play. I don't follow amateur hockey. I just don't get into it. But from everything I've read, this guy is the real deal. And it was kind of funny. I saw my uncle on Sunday, and his wife, and their 3 kids. And we were social distancing. My grandmother was there also. It was a pseudo-family reunion. My uncle's a big Ranger fan, and he was saying, Jacob, I'm going to call you when the Rangers get the first overall pick. And I'm thinking, there's no way the Rangers are getting the first overall pick. Be reasonable. I mean, realize something. There was an 87.5% chance they didn't get the first overall pick. Excluding any specific team, there's just an 87.5% chance they don't get it. That's just fact. Each team had those odds. 12.5% chance of getting it, 87.5% chance of not getting it. That's how math works. So I just laughed and I said, okay, fine. I'm thinking no way the Rangers are getting the first overall pick. And truthfully, I even forgot about the NHL draft lottery. I didn't watch it live. I was watching some recorded TV shows with my mom because no live sports. And the draft lottery is something that you don't need to watch live. You know, you can get the results after the fact and not miss anything. And I'm not going to delve into the conspiracy stuff. That's a bunch of nonsense. I don't buy any of that. But it was about 6:20. I went on Twitter just to see what was going on. Not even thinking about the NHL draft lottery. And then I see all the hockey accounts I follow tweeting that the Rangers won the first overall pick. And I just paused what I was watching, and this look went over my face. This, oh, you've got to be kidding me look. And I just ran my hand over my hair. I was so upset. My mom wanted to know what was going on, and I said the Rangers got the first overall pick. So, I called my uncle. Left him a message, actually. He didn't know that the Rangers had won the first overall pick. He was on the phone with someone else, so I left him a message. And then he called me back and he said, Jacob, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. The Rangers got Lafreniere. And he was gloating and I was letting him. It was tough, but I let him gloat. He had every right to. The Rangers are getting a great hockey player in Lafreniere. I mean, the NHL draft has the highest success rate. There are guys like Nail Yakupov and Alexander Daigle and Griffin Reinhart and Brian Lawton that just don't work out. But more often than not, they do. So when every reputable person says this guy is the best prospect in this draft, he's a can't-miss guy, yeah, you've got to let the Ranger fans in your life gloat. So my uncle was happy. He gave me credit for letting him go. And then my buddy Drew texted me, and we had a back and forth. I haven't spoken to Drew in a while. That was nice to hear from him again. Every Rangers fan right now is over the moon. I mean, realize, this season was gravy. They weren't expected to do anything this year. They go on a surge late in the season. Because of the pause, they end up in the qualifying round to go up against the Hurricanes. They get destroyed by the Hurricanes. And there were some Ranger fans that were upset about it. But most of them were like, oh, this is gravy. You know, I'm okay with it. These guys got playoff experience. That's all I can ask for. I'm fine. Their mood changed from contentness to elation. And they have every right to be happy. I mean, think about this core that the Rangers have. It's scary. I'll tell you right now, even as an Islander fan, it's a scary core. Lafreniere, Panarin, Zibanejad, Strome, D'Angelo, Kakko, Buchnevich, Kreider, Fox, Keitel, and Shesterkin. That's a great core. That's a core that's going to win for a long time. It just is. And it kills me to say that. But it's the truth. Yeah, I retweeted something saying that from Islander fans' experience, your team gets better when the first overall pick leaves. But that was just in jest. Let the Ranger fans in your life have their moment. I mean, make no mistake about it. They're set. They are set up fantastically for the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe even more. The one thing I'll say is, as much as it kills me that the Rangers got it, it's a good thing that a team like the Penguins or the Oilers didn't get it. A legitimate playoff team. A team that just got bounced in the qualifying round. I mean, that was the issue with this setup. You're going to have a legitimate playoff team have a strong chance of getting a generational talent. Even though the Rangers were in the playoff race at the time of the pause, they weren't a playoff team. They were 2 points out. And most likely, they wouldn't have made it into the playoffs. It's possible they could have, but odds are they wouldn't have. So from that end of things, it's good that Lafreniere ended up with the Rangers, but as an Islander fan, this kills me. I'd say congratulations to the Rangers, but I don't think I can say those words. I think I would spontaneously combust. Alright, now it's time to preview the 4 NHL games today, and I'll start with Blue Jackets Lightning. For the Blue Jackets, they can't go back to what worked last year. They've seen it already. John Cooper is a really good coach. He's not a good playoff coach, but in the regular season, he's really good. And he's a really smart guy, actually. I've been in the same room as him. The Lightning will have seen it. They'll know how to combat it. It won't work. What the Blue Jackets need to do is go after the absence of Hedman and Stamkos. You can try to fill that void all you want if you're John Cooper, but the simple fact is there's no replacing two talents like that. Stamkos probably isn't going to play. Hedman, it's still an outside possibility, but I wouldn't bet on it. The Blue Jackets need to attack that weakness. But the Lightning are still the better team. as great as Korpisalo has been playing, Vasilevsky is still better. The Lightning also still have Kucherov, they still have Point, they still have Johnson, Killorn, Cirelli, Palat, Sergachev. They're the more talented team. That's how they're going to win this game. It's a tall ask without having a guy like Hedman, who plays such an important role on that team. He's a perennial Norris Trophy finalist. And John Tortorella is going to be able to attack that void and the Stamkos void. But if the Lightning are going to win this series, and it's a tall ask, I did pick the Blue Jackets, they're going to need to rely on them still being more talented than the Blue Jackets. Moving on now to Flames Stars. And the Flames need to make this an offensive game. They need to be on the attack from the outset, both literally and figuratively. Literally in the physical sense, because they are the more physical team with guys like Tkachuk and Lindholm and Lucic and Giordano and Sam Bennett also, but figuratively in the sense that they are the better offensive team. Tkachuk had 61 points this year. Gaudreau had another really good season. Johnny Hockey, Elias Lindholm, Sean Monahan, Mikhail Backlund. The Flames are the better offensive team. And the way the Stars have been playing, they're susceptible to a great offensive showing from the literal side and the figurative side. For my money, the key to this series is Jamie Benn. Ben needs to show up and make an impact in every game. And I don't want to hear that that's a tall ask for him, okay? We've seen the talent that he is. He had a bad year this year, only 39 points in 69 games. But this guy has been a point-a-game player in this league. And he's always been really physical. The thing is, in the round-robin games, he was invisible. He didn't have a point. He was a -4. Ben needs to show up and make a huge impact in this game. Other than that, Tyler Seguin needs to show up. He's been the Stars' best player by far. I'd also say that Esa Lindell and Jason Dickinson need to show up. Jamie Oleksiak also. Blake Como as well. The Flames are going to look to out-hit the Stars, and they are the more physical team. But the Stars can't just keel over and let that happen. They need to put up a real fight. They have the guys to do it, they just need to show up. Moving on now to Hurricanes Bruins, an Eastern Conference Finals rematch from last year. I didn't even realize that yesterday. That just went over my head. This series is going to come down to one thing and one thing only. That's special teams. The Hurricanes' penalty kill against the Rangers was almost perfect. The Rangers were 1 for 14 on the power play. They could get nothing going. They had a tough time setting up plays. Peter Mrazek made some really good saves. So did James Reimer. The Rangers' power play was absolutely anemic. But the Hurricanes are going to have their work cut out for them against the Bruins. The Bruins had the second best power play in the NHL. David Pastrnak had 20 power play goals. Patrice Bergeron had 11. Jake DeBrusk had 7. I don't know who their power play coach is, but I wish the Islanders had him. That's the biggest thing. I'm not going to say specifically what each team needs to do. It's special teams. It's Bruins power play versus Hurricanes penalty kill. The second best power play in the NHL this year versus the fourth best penalty kill in the NHL this year, and a penalty kill that stifled the Rangers. The last game is Blackhawks Golden Knights. For the Blackhawks to win, they need to hope that every single Golden Knight gets lost on the way to the arena. I mean, it's just that simple. I don't see any way that they can win this game. I don't see any way that they can win this series. I think this is going to be a romp. I mean, it's kind of funny. The late games in the NHL are always the games that go into overtime. I just don't see that happening here. I don't see how the Blackhawks can realistically compete with the Golden Knights. I mean, the one thing I would say is the Golden Knights do have a bad defense, and they have a question mark in net, but I don't think the Blackhawks are going to be able to take advantage of it. Even if they're able to score a lot, the Blackhawks don't have a great defense either, besides Duncan Keith. And Corey Crawford has been terrible in these playoffs. I think this is going to be a romp. I think we're all going to be able to go to bed early tonight. Well, by early I mean like, let's say midnight-ish. I don't think we're going to be staying up until 2 a.m. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that you can never have too much talent. Even the 1927 Yankees didn't win every year.